Hey kids, Miss Susan here, and today's lesson is about garlic bread. Well, maybe the lesson itself isn't about garlic bread, but the garlic bread is going to help us in learning our lesson today. So when I was a kid, my mom did all the cooking in the house. I don't know if that's how it is in your house, or maybe your dad does the cooking, maybe they share, maybe you do the cooking. But my mom did all the cooking at our house. And my favorite meals were when we had pasta. And it's because I like pasta, but also because whenever we had pasta, we got to have garlic bread. And when we had garlic bread, my mom would make the garlic bread and she'd bring it over to the table. And she'd have it on a tray and there would be 4 pieces there for the 4 of us in the family. And the person who always got first choice was my dad. And that makes sense because he was older, he had a bigger appetite, he should get the best piece. But do you know who got to pick next? It was either my sister or myself, and my mom always picked last. And isn't that the way with moms a lot of times? They do all the work to take care of their family, and they make sure that everyone else is taken care of before they worry about themselves. So last week was Mother's Day, and Miss Debbie gave us some ideas about how we could honor our mothers. And I really hope that you were able to do some of those things this week. But I also hope you know that it's not just for Mother's Day that we want to do those. Mothers sacrifice so much every day of the year, and so we need to be honoring our mothers as often as we can. It's nice to have Mother's Day as a special day to remember them, but we want to make sure that we're showing our love to them and honoring them all throughout the year. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm talking about garlic bread, because there's not garlic bread in the Bible, right? I haven't read anyone anywhere that they sat down to have a meal and they ate garlic bread. But the whole idea of putting others before yourself, like my mom would do with the garlic bread, that is definitely in the Bible. And it ties into our story of Abraham. So do you remember we've been learning about Abraham for a bunch of weeks now, and you've had many different teachers that have helped you learn more about Abraham. And so I'm just going to review some of the stuff that we've learned about Abraham. So I have my map here from the last time I was talking about Abraham. And so remember that Abraham and his family started here in Ur, and then they traveled up to Haran where they stayed for a while. And then when they were in Haran, God spoke to Abraham and said, I have a place for you that I want you to go. He didn't tell him where it was. He just said, follow me. I'm going to bring you somewhere cool. So they walked and walked and walked. Remember I said it might have taken like a month or more to walk there? And they eventually ended up in Canaan, which is where God was bringing them. That was the promised land that he promised to Abraham. But then if you remember, this is a few weeks ago now, but when I was last doing the lesson, we talked about how things didn't go so well in Canaan when they first arrived. There was a famine there, so there wasn't enough food for Abraham and his family to be able to eat. So then they had to continue on down into Egypt to be able to get some food, and they stayed there for a while before they returned back to Canaan. But then we've been learning from Miss Ranza and Miss Debbie about the promise that God gave to Abraham. So once he'd returned back to Canaan, God had him look at the dust on the ground and look at the stars in the sky and said, hey, can you count them all? No, there's way too many for you to count, but that's how many descendants I'm going to give you. So your like kids and grandkids and great-grandkids and on and on and on. It's going to be more than the stars in the sky. And Miss Debbie gave us that great little craft that we could make that had the stars and the sand in it. I don't know if you made that, but it's a good reminder of, wow, I can't count all of those. And that was the promise that God gave Abraham. So the part of the story we're going to talk about today happened after they returned to Canaan, but before God gave the promise to Abraham. Oh, one more thing that I wanted to mention. Do you remember how old Abraham was before his promised son was born? 100 years old. That's a long time to wait for God's promise. But Abraham believed that God gave me this promise and he is going to do something about it. I'm sure there were times where he wondered, right? But he trusted God and he believed. So that's all part of Abraham's story. So before that, so he wasn't 100 at this point in time. He was younger than that. His promised son hadn't been born. He hadn't been told that his descendants would be as many as the stars in the sky. This story is about Abraham and his nephew Lot. So Lot was part of the group of the family that did the big trip. And both Abraham and Lot were animal farmers. So that's what they did to make money. So I don't know what your parents do to make money. Maybe someone is a doctor, or maybe they are a server at a restaurant, or they work at a store, or they're a police officer. There's many different things that we can do today to be able to make money, to be able to pay for food and a place to live. But what they did at the time is they took care of animals. And the thing with animals is they take up a lot of space. So I don't know if you've been to a farm or anything like that, but it takes a lot of space for all the cattle and the sheep and the goats. And they had, between Lot and Abram, they had a lot of animals. And there just wasn't enough room for them to be staying close together and have enough land for all their animals. So Abraham made a decision that they should split up. So what he did is he took Lot and he took him to a place and they were looking out at all the land. And you know what? Abraham let Lot choose first. So Abraham was probably older because Lot is the nephew and Abraham is the uncle. And so he should really have been given the first choice, especially because in their culture, when you are older, you're really respected and you get the first choice and you get everything that's important goes to the older people and the younger people get what's left over. So Abraham should have been able to choose first for the land. But that's not how he did. He decided to let Lot choose first. So he told Lot, here is all the land. Where would you like to go? If you go to the left, I will go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. So Lot took a look and he looked at all the land. And he's like, oh, there. That's the land I want. Because he saw that the land was really green and there was lots of water around and lots of great things for raising animals. And so he found the best thing and he picked it for himself. And Abraham said, that's fine. You can go there. I'll go over here. So who do you think was happier in the long run? Who do you think was happy with where they were living? Do you think it was Lot because he got the good land that was really green and had lots of water? You'd think so, right? But it actually ended up that Abraham was happier in the long run. So what happened is that the land that Lot had chosen was near a city called Sodom. And the people in Sodom, they were known for not doing the things that God wanted them to. And God got so upset at them at one point in time that he actually destroyed the city. And Lot had to run away with his family to be able to get away from that city being destroyed. Where Abraham was happy where he was, he didn't need to move. His animals, he just kept getting more and more animals and he was doing really well. Now, did Abraham know that that was going to happen when he gave Lot the first choice? No, he didn't know. He didn't know that God was going to bless him for that. But what he did know is that it would make God happy. So whenever we choose to let someone else get the first choice, where someone else becomes more important than ourselves, it always makes God happy. We're not guaranteed that we're going to get blessed as a result of it, but we know that it'll make God happy. And that is really what we should be aiming for. God has given us so much that this is a little bit that we can do back to be able to make God happy. So just like my mom gave all of us the first choice of garlic bread, and Abraham gave the first choice to Lot, maybe you can make a decision this week to give someone else the first choice, even when it's the thing that you want.